The story continues with Ben and Daly returning to the flight simulator, following their receipt of the archaeologist's reports. To Daly's satisfaction, the simulated tempest matches exactly what they encountered when the aircraft vanished. He can finally demonstrate that the disappearance wasn't due to his incompetence but rather the storm. However, unlike the events of 2013, Daly can no longer navigate the aircraft through the tempest. He crashes the plane with every try, even after performing the identical actions he executed on Flight 828. Daly becomes unhinged and begins blaming Fiona. The fact that she researches shared consciousness convinces him she was positioned on the aircraft to cause its disappearance. Meanwhile, Autumn visits Michaela's residence to monitor her activities. She also discovers Cal at the apartment and becomes intrigued by his intellect. Michaela receives a call from Ben mentioning he's with the archaeologist. Autumn overhears this and quickly informs the Major about Ben's activities. Subsequently, Michaela is at the police headquarters when a notification appears on her computer display stating that the archaeologist perished an hour earlier in an incident. She's stunned and certain the death wasn't coincidental. She and Ben attempt to reach Daly since his life might also be threatened. When they receive no response, they visit his residence and discover a wall covered with photographs of Fiona, the aircraft, and current weather forecasts. Through additional investigation, they determine a dark storm-like phenomenon has emerged off the coastline, and Daly intends to pilot an aircraft into it to prove the disappearance wasn't his responsibility. It's a foolish action guaranteed to kill him. Michaela and Ben rush to the aviation simulator and learn that Daly has already commandeered a plane. Not only that, but he has kidnapped Fiona, believing she will activate some mystical enchantment that will transport them through time once more. They depart before Daly can be prevented. When they reach the storm center, a brilliant light illuminates them. As a safety precaution, their aircraft is destroyed by the Air National Guard. However, it's reported that no aircraft debris is located afterward. When Michaela isn't home, Autumn breaks in and photographs a file that Michaela uses to store all information about 828 and the passengers. Autumn also discovers something startling in Cal's sketchbook and removes a page from it. Due to her actions, the Major learns that the Holy Grail she seeks is Cal, since he's most impacted by the callings. While conversing with Ben, Michaela recalls that Autumn was present when she discussed the archaeologist. Recognizing she's the informant among them, Michaela apprehends her. At home, Grace enters Cal's room and finds him absent. He has escaped through the window. Within the next 10 minutes, the house is encircled by officers searching for clues about his whereabouts. Ben doesn't trust them since any could be collaborating with the Major. He understands they must locate Cal independently, and for that, he must inform Grace about the callings. Upon learning that everything Ben did was to protect Cal, she feels terrible about how she treated him. Ben examines Cal's drawings where he left a guide for them. Most are sketches of forests and hills, but one page specifically captures Grace's attention. She identifies it as the town of Tannersville. Another sketch depicts Cal alone inside a cabin with an adult approaching. Jared assists them in dismissing the police so the family can concentrate on finding the child independently. What they don't realize is that the Major has also been notified about the missing child. She organizes her own search team, trying to determine if the disappearance relates to the callings. Ben and Grace depart for Tannersville while Michaela remains behind to question Autumn because she might know the child's location. After some investigation, she learns that Autumn had a daughter before the plane disappeared who is now in her adoptive parents' custody. The only reason she's assisting the Major is because she was promised she could meet her daughter. Using this information, Michaela manipulates her into betraying the Major. They visit her apartment to see the missing page from Cal's sketchbook. It contains a picture of the cabin's exterior where he is located. In exchange for her assistance, Autumn receives information about her daughter. Then we see the Major for the first time. She's purchasing a new apartment in New York to remain in the city and observe the passengers. It's clear she's pursuing Cal and his abilities, but her actual intentions remain mysterious. Meanwhile, Ben notices that the Major's associates are also actively searching for Cal and are already in Tannersville. Michaela transmits them the cabin picture from earlier, and they use the radio tower in the background to reach the specified location. Fortunately for the parents, Cal is inside the cabin, safe and unharmed. He states he's waiting for someone who will arrive momentarily. The calling has informed him this person is significant and asked him to care for them. Suddenly, a man pounds on the door and collapses immediately after entering. Cal anticipated this would occur, so he brought blankets and a first aid kit for the individual. However, he has no idea who the man is. Later, Michaela arrives and observes the man's jacket is identical to the one she saw in her callings. Therefore, the person walking through a blizzard in her callings was him. Shortly afterward, he awakens and reveals his name is Zeke. He came to the mountains for hiking but became trapped in a blizzard for the past week. He was inside a cave doing his best to survive. Then he saw Michaela's photograph in a magazine he was burning for warmth. For some reason, he knew he had to find her, which is why he continued walking through the storm and survived. This indicates Zeke was also receiving a calling, which is peculiar because he isn't a passenger. Then the group discovers he went hiking 1 year ago in 2017. Somehow, he also time traveled like the airplane did, and nobody has an explanation for how this is possible. It's now the following morning and Zeke still cannot comprehend the situation. He mentions feeling an earthquake while in the cave, which might have been the crucial moment, but nobody can be certain. As he and Michaela converse, they suddenly receive the same calling and are transported to a field with a complete view of the stars. They decide to visit the cave to investigate what occurred. Along the way, Michaela learns that Zeke once had a sister who died in the mountains. He blamed himself for her death and went hiking over a year ago to feel closer to her. His parents consider him a failure and don't want him in their lives, which is why he hasn't attempted to contact anyone since yesterday. They reach the cave where they experience the same calling again. Zeke remembers that the star is a symbol he and his sister used to associate with each other. The calling might be telling him to find closure regarding her death, which means they must visit her grave. Eventually, they make it to the grave, and Zeke finally accepts that his sister's death was destiny and not his fault. They believe the callings will cease now, but strangely enough, they touch hands and are transported to the same location again. Meanwhile, Cal reunites with Olive at home. The family is relieved that everyone is safe. Jared joins them to discuss everything, but as they're talking, someone throws a stone and shatters their window. Jared attempts to catch the person who threw it but is unsuccessful. After Daly's disappearance, the protests against the passengers have intensified. The police are summoned, and an investigation is launched to identify the perpetrator. They apprehend an anti-828 leader named Cody. He's questioned but released due to insufficient evidence. However, Ben cannot take chances regarding his family. Later that day, he visits Cody's location and threatens him to stay away from his home. But the confrontation is broadcast live on a website, which makes Ben appear bad for threatening people. That night, Ben returns home despondently and begins cleaning the paint on their door made by the vandals. Grace joins him and reassures him that everything will be fine. Ben also moves back into the house to ensure he's with the family constantly. Michaela and Zeke are about to return home when they notice a drawing on a rock. It's two people holding hands just like they are right now. Michaela brings him to her apartment and allows him to stay the night. Even though Zeke doesn't want to impose, he has nowhere else to go. When darkness falls, Zeke sees a wolf jumping at him and realizes he just experienced another calling. Then we're introduced to a cult called the Church of the Returned. A passenger named Adrian has gathered people who believe the passengers are divine beings. He supports their irrational beliefs and becomes their leader. In the hospital, Sanvi is approached by a woman named Alice whose husband has a terminal condition and is dying. She believes only Sanvi can help him since she's a passenger. Alice is a cult member, but unaware of this, Sanvi agrees to examine her husband just to comfort her. In the next scene, they're at Alice's home. Sanvi examines her husband, but he's too far gone to be saved. However, Alice refuses to accept it and aims a gun at the doctor. She commands her to help because she's one of the returned. Sanvi is shocked and can only hope for her life. Simultaneously, Ben goes to the hospital to meet her and finds a Church of the Returned card on the floor. He realizes Sanvi is in trouble and quickly goes to the returned church. Adrian welcomes him as a priest and starts rambling about their purpose in the world. Ben knows the guy is trying to deceive people but can do nothing about it. He finds Alice's address on a bulletin board and quickly heads to her house. Meanwhile, Sanvi locks herself in a room with Alice's husband and tells him she doesn't know how to save him. The man understands her concerns and opposes his wife. At home, Zeke meets Cal, who is exhausted from receiving so many callings. He thinks the pictures he draws come true and harm people, which is why he refuses to tell anyone about his recent visions. Zeke befriends the child and makes him understand that he just sees things before they happen and has no control over the future. Then, at the police station, Michaela's supervisor informs her of a utility vehicle that was stolen. The criminals drove it into the river where it has been submerged for the past 3 days. People are trying their best to extract it, but some officers must be on site 24/7 to prevent civilian interference. Michaela agrees to take the night shift while Jared does the day shift. Lurd comes to meet Michaela during lunchtime. She's noticed Jared is distancing himself from her recently and asks Michaela if something is happening between them. Michaela attempts to lie but knows that Lurd deserves to know the truth. Upon discovering her husband is unfaithful, she's devastated. She refuses to listen to Michaela and storms off. Sanvi is trapped in Alice's home with a gun pointed at her. Alice is losing her patience every second. Her husband tries to calm her down, but she doesn't listen to anyone. Outside, Michaela and Ben arrive in front of the house and see Sanvi through the window. Ben pretends to be a cult member and tricks Alice into allowing him inside. Behind him, Michaela also joins them and finally restrains Alice. She's arrested, but Sanvi is traumatized after the incident. After that, Ben goes to Adrian to ask him to stop the Church of the Returned. Adrian instead retaliates that the passengers are the solution to all problems in the world. He knows he doesn't actually believe it, but since his followers do, it's more than sufficient. Ben also figures out he's a con artist but can do nothing to stop him. At night, Michaela goes to Jared's home and finds out that Lurd has left him. He feels bad for her but believes it was destined to happen. This is the only way he and Michaela can be together without any more deception. Michaela says she loves him as much as he does, but Lurd is her best friend. Since she just left, they cannot go behind her back and start dating immediately. At home, Kel draws another calling. This time it's a picture of a wolf jumping at Michaela. Meanwhile, Michaela is witnessing a vehicle being extracted from the river after approximately 80 hours of being stuck underwater. People are expecting a decomposed corpse, but as soon as the door opens, a living man jumps at Michaela. The calling once again comes true and shocks Ben and his family, but a question arises: how can a man be alive after being underwater for more than 3 days? The man is a burglar and murderer named Griffin. A flashback shows us that he, alongside his friend, had robbed a bank and killed 3 men right before they drove into the river. Therefore, he's sure to be convicted now that he's been found alive. Ben watches the news and theorizes that the man returned from the dead like Zeke and the passengers did. Michaela meets Jared in the hospital and tells him about Zeke. He's annoyed that she didn't tell him about a stranger living in her apartment. Since Lurd left him, he's been overly protective of Michaela and thinks they'll get back together eventually. Sanvi also comes to examine the newly resurrected man. She discovers he had been underwater for exactly 82 hours and 8 minutes, which relates to Flight 828. Michaela doesn't know what it means, but it's clear he's somehow connected to them. Suddenly, Griffin awakens and starts screaming that they're all going to die. He's experiencing a calling for the first time and is panicking since he doesn't know what it means. Before Michaela can ask him what he's seen, he's sedated and knocked out for the next few hours. While they wait for him to wake up, Jared approaches Zeke and starts interrogating him. He clearly doesn't like the guy and his friendship with Michaela. A while later, Griffin awakens and Michaela talks to him. She finds out that the calling he received was about a deadly bombing that's about to happen in New York City. Michaela tells him everything about the callings and asks for his help to stop the bombing. However, unlike the rest of the people who have returned, Griffin is not a good person. He wants to use the information about the bombing to get out of being convicted for murder and robbery. Michaela tries explaining that this isn't a matter of negotiation because many people's lives are in danger, but Griffin remains stubborn. The police have also been tipped off about a terrorist attack tonight. Upon finding out that Griffin knows about it, they're willing to provide him full immunity in exchange for the information. Ben starts looking for more information on Griffin. Michaela plans to use it to manipulate him into helping the police. Olive helps Ben and finds out that Griffin had a brother-like friend who died in a robbery they did together. Both of them used to live with the same foster parents who might be able to give them more insight into Griffin. Ben sends Grace to meet the foster mother. Outside her home, the woman has no idea he was alive since he ran away from home when he was 19. She saw him after several years yesterday on TV and knows nothing about him. However, she gives them a picture of Griffin and his late friend, which might help the case. After that, Michaela interrogates Griffin one more time and asks him how his best friend died. She has discovered that Griffin killed a man and blamed his friend, which caused his death later on. Griffin regrets doing it, but even the most vulnerable incident of his life doesn't break him. Eventually, the U.S. attorney signs off and sets Griffin free. He's a danger to society, but they at least know where the bombings are going to take place. In the meantime, Zeke goes to a house and tries to break inside. He's caught in the act and arrested, much to Jared's delight. He tries to paint Zeke as a thief in front of Michaela, but she knows the man better than that. When the two are alone, he reveals that the house belongs to his mother. He missed her but didn't want to intrude, so he decided to break into her house and see what situation she's in. He knows it was a stupid move but begs that his intentions weren't wrong. Michaela trusts him and lets him go even though Jared disapproves. Therefore, when no one is looking, he picks up Zeke's cup from the trash, hoping to find something out of it. Meanwhile, Sanvi has been paranoid since she was held at gunpoint earlier. She's startled by little things and afraid for her life. A fellow colleague, Dr. Matthew, suggests she see a therapist, but Sanvi insists she's doing just fine. An hour later, all the bombs in the city are deactivated, which saves hundreds of lives. Because of Griffin's contribution, he becomes a hero overnight. However, Michaela sees a wolf growling at her from the crowd, which means the danger hasn't passed yet. Suddenly, something happens to Cal and he starts throwing things around. He breaks the school art project he worked on all night yesterday. When confronted by his parents, he claims something is about to happen, but he can only tell Zeke about it. Zeke, on the other hand, is at a store buying liquor. He used to be an alcoholic but has told Michaela he's currently sober. Things aren't looking good for him because Jared has run an identity check on him and discovered he's been arrested for assault before. He tells Michaela about it, but she in turn gets mad at him for stealing Zeke's prints off a cup. Right then, Griffin walks out of the police station in his new suit. He cockily tells Michaela that he's now a hero for the people of New York. As he leaves, she gets a calling asking her to stop him. The same thing happens to Ben and Zeke as well. Later that day, Michaela returns home, and Zeke hides the bottle of alcohol. He also reveals he went to see his mom again, but she didn't let him in. He's hurt because even after everything that happened, he's still a screw-up in her view. Michaela feels bad for him, but she has to ask him about the assault charges. Zeke doesn't hesitate before revealing he got into a fight with a man who was troubling his friends at a club. He only started it because he was drunk and regrets it to this day. In the end, Michaela and Zeke hug and resolve the confusion. In the hospital, another doctor finds out about the strange protein found in Cal's blood recently. He found the same protein in Griffin's blood too, which has sparked a rumor about them being alike. Sanvi is quick to shut the discussion, saying it's probably a mistake in the test. However, she knows she cannot keep it secret for long. Suddenly, she starts to hyperventilate and has to stop and take deep breaths before calming down. Dr. Matthews witnesses this and gives her the business card of a therapist. Somewhere else, Zeke goes to meet Cal and asks him what he wanted to say. Cal makes him promise he'll keep this a secret and shows him his most recent sketch. It shows graves of himself, Ben, and Michaela. According to the calling, the three are going to die. Zeke tells his parents that the kid is just shaken by different things happening to him. Right then, a news channel broadcasts that Griffin is about to appear in an interview. The family is scared he'll tell people about the callings and they'll come after them for answers. The interview will put Cal at risk and Ben wants to stop it at any cost. Jared has put his man behind Zeke to keep an eye on him. He witnesses the guy buying something from a sketchy place that day. Jared sees a picture of him doing so and suspects he consumes drugs. But in reality, Zeke was buying a gun. He's willing to kill Griffin before he goes on TV and risks Cal's life. The next day is the day of the interview. A large crowd is gathered to cheer for Griffin as he walks past them like a celebrity. Zeke is ready to shoot him, but before he can, Griffin vomits gallons of water and dies instantly. It's almost as if he's drowning. Later that day, Sanvi confirms he did in fact drown. The effect of being underwater for 3 days affected him only after 3 days of coming out. It's a strange phenomenon, but at this point, they're used to it. Later, Michaela goes to Zeke's mother and introduces herself. The woman thinks Zeke lied about being trapped in a cave because he was on drugs. Michaela clears things up, making her believe that her son has traveled through time like Flight 828. His mother cries and silently apologizes to him. Ben does more digging into the time of Griffin's death and discovers he died after 82 hours and 80 minutes of being resurrected. This means he lived for the exact time he was missing and died as he was supposed to. If this is true for everyone else, the passengers will also die 5.5 years after the plane landed. The date lands on June 2, 2024. Cal confirms this by showing them the sketch he made that now has dates on the tombstones. The family doesn't know how to react. Olive and Grace cannot lose their loved ones for the second time but can do nothing to stop the inevitable. Moreover, Grace reveals she's pregnant. Ben is overjoyed, but it turns out she doesn't know if the baby is Danny's or his. Somewhere else, Sanvi goes to her new therapist who happens to be the Major. She's supposed to be someone Sanvi can trust to get direct insights on the passengers and their powers. In Michaela's apartment, Jared barges in and starts looking for drugs he thinks Zeke hid somewhere. The men get into an argument when Zeke retaliates. At the same time, Michaela is climbing up the stairs when she hears a calling asking her to stop someone. She runs to her apartment just in time to hear a gunshot. Then the screen goes black, leaving the audience wondering who got shot. And that wraps up Season 1 of Manifest. It shows us that sometimes the answers we're searching for aren't as important as the journey itself, and that fate may have a way of pulling us exactly where we're meant to be. The mystery of Flight 828 reminds us how fragile life can be, and how every moment counts when time itself feels stolen. I give Manifest Season 1 an 8 out of 10. The concept is gripping, the characters have strong emotional arcs, and the suspense keeps you hooked. While some storylines wander a bit, the central mystery is powerful enough to keep viewers invested in what comes next. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts below, and do and share your theories about Flight 828. Check out Part 1 and 2 of the season recap in the description. Thanks for watching and see you in the next recap.